Derek Anthony Paul Cullen, known in later life to most as Paul, was a transport planner. After going to sea with the Merchant Navy aged 16, he returned to land and worked for British Rail, later going on to work for Transport for London. As a teenager, Paul would cycle around taking photographs of buses, trams, and railway stations. He was fascinated by the train network and how people were able to coordinate the movements of so many trains, carrying masses of people between stations in an effective and somewhat timely way. He could make friends with almost anybody. For Paul, taking a bus or a train would get him where he needed to be with a great chat with the passenger next to him as often as not. Throughout his life, whether visiting a friend's house in London or on a family holiday in Portugal, he would have his camera out, photographing roads and pavements. He took an interest in these small details which play a big role in facilitating our daily lives. And when he saw something wrong, like studded tactile paving and dropped curbs facing diagonally into the road, instead of pointing disabled or visually impaired walkers to the pedestrian crossing, he would take a photo and raise it with the council. Paul was idealistic. He wanted a world that worked for everybody. He wanted safe, comfortable, livable streets for people. He wanted a sustainable environment where people could be happy. But he was practical too. He knew that things wouldn't improve unless people made an effort to improve them. And he knew that not everyone wanted the same things. Active in both the Oxford Pedestrians Association and the cycling campaign group Cyclox, as well as a driver and car owner himself, he saw that all of these groups of people at times hated each other and wanted or needed different things. But he never shied away from doing what he could to work towards changes that would benefit everyone in one way or another. One day, while Paul was living in Jericho, his neighbour Alison learnt that he was chair of the Pedestrians Association and asked for his help. Alison was in her 80s and had depended on a bench on Walton Street to enable her to walk to the shops and back, which was too far for her without somewhere to rest. Some years earlier, the bench had been removed while the pavement was modified, and it had never been replaced. Paul asked the council to install a bench on the route, but the council did not act. When Paul suddenly died in 2011, the Pedestrians Association wanted to honour his memory, and after discussing possible locations with Paul's wife Ros, decided to pay for a bench in that spot on Walton Street. Alison was still living in the area and was able to make use of the bench. She regularly met a friend who lived in the opposite direction at the bench. They were empowered to shop, socialise, and participate in their community by this public place to sit. In an age where it is getting harder and harder to find somewhere to sit in public without having to spend any money, a public bench can be an important community asset. It allows a street to be a public place in itself, somewhere to stop and be, not just somewhere to pass through. It enables more people to walk, potentially reducing the number of cars on the road. A bench requires very little maintenance and can be affordably and sustainably made from wood and metal. Some problems don't need futuristic technological breakthroughs to be addressed. Use of community resources in sensible ways for the benefit of the community can improve our lives using what we already have available to us. The inaction of the council in this case is not the worst bench-related crime by a governing body recently. In many places, benches are disappearing, and where they remain, they are being made deliberately less comfortable, too narrow to sit on properly, slanted or retrofitted with so-called armrests, designed only to prevent certain uses of the bench by certain members of the community. Instead of addressing the root causes of rough sleeping, public money is being spent on making public spaces less accessible and less comfortable for all of us in order to push some of the most marginalised members of our society further into the margins. Things can get better, and that change comes from below. Hopefully, for many years to come, Paul's Bench will provide not just relief and comfort, but inspiration, serving as a waymarker towards a more sustainable and inclusive society.